Okay, so first off, my one agenda piece, and then over to you folks or issues for this Thursday, March 16th FoodOn curation call. So I was working on this paper with Tarini on food process upper level hierarchy, and in conjunction with that, talked to the OB folks about process modeling because they have this class called material processing, and they had been adding terms to it from a biomedical perspective. So it turns out that they have no problems at all curating. It seems the upper level material processing branch, which would become a general branch for all of OboFoundry ontologies to use. And this means that they could take in this upper level process modeling for classes that we need ultimately for food processing. So I would like to start talking directly about that hierarchy, and I will read Magali's process on paper and get feedback, and then we can all talk about that hierarchy together, and that can be in a group, I guess, dedicated to process modeling. We'll get that going again. So I guess my first question is, and I see Matthew's not on the call, but the first question is when that could happen. And the possibility that I have is that it could happen a week after, every 2 weeks, starting a week after the end of the month call. So the first week and the third week of the month, say, coming up for a couple of months. So first of all, for the folks who are interested in being a part of that conversation, if you could raise your hands or just raise objections to having us fire up this conversation, get it going, it will be so.
I guess we're raising hands for the interest currently, you know?
Or being interested in it, yes. Or voice.
Yes, otherwise the counts will be false.
Voice your opposition, cry and shout and yell that you cannot make it.
Opposition was just for the time,
or this is for probably an hour, and it'll be every 2 weeks talking about the upper level food process hierarchy.
We have to we have to do that.
Right. Okay. So just looking at dates here, March. Today's the 16th, 30th is booked. So we're talking about April. April the 6th and the 20th. April 6th and 20th, and possibly May 4th. So that
I cannot do 6th. I'm so sorry.
Okay. No. So, well, let me put it out. I'll just create a poll, and we'll see exactly how many people can sprinkle themselves somewhere within that. Okay. I guess I don't.
Is this a different meeting, or is this during these regular times?
It's not during these regular times. It's alternating with the FoodOn meeting and then the end of month call. So it'll be in those empty spots.
Well, turns out I also cannot do the 20th because I'm presenting at a conference. I'm an invited speaker. So I'm wondering maybe if we can find another day other than Thursdays.
Right. I'll send out a poll, and I won't just have this hour slot in it. In fact, Handy, if you can just send me what your schedule might be, I could maybe even engineer the poll.
Okay, I will do that.
Okay. All right. Any other news items or agenda pieces you guys want?
Can I just quickly plug something?
Yep.
Hello, everyone. Apologies if you've heard this before. I just have to say this once more. The United States Department of Agriculture, USDA, will be working on a checklist for the minimum information about food composition data. We're hoping to use some modern tools like LinkML in conjunction with ontologies like FoodOn to create a meta model and standard for the description of food composition databases or related research data. So if anyone's interested, please reach out to me and I will email you my information. Thank you very much.
Hey, great. I'm just filling in. I'll add a poll in this as well as sending it out. Okay, so over to FoodOn issues.
Can I just quickly ask one thing? There was like, I was working on the USDA mapping, like because now we have changed the top level hierarchy and I've just started remapping all the terms. So I was just wondering, I can maybe just quickly check one thing. So if in case anyone has any other suggestions or if I am doing it all right, so would that be okay?
Yeah, sure. Go for
Yeah, it will just take 1 or 2 minutes. Just a second. Okay, so here is that. So this is the same thing which Damien, we were discussing in our meeting when you, Kai, and I was discussing about having like how to map any of the term like chicken heart or chicken gizzard or chicken liver. Should that be a broad synonym for both of them, like piece of chicken liver and pieces of chicken liver? So I just wanted to reconfirm before I go down further, like, is it okay that we have chicken liver and I'm mapping it to piece of chicken liver raw? And should I also map it to pieces of chicken liver raw?
Right. So the sort of an underlying question is, should FoodOn have, FoodOn will certainly have reference to the whole organ, and it will have a precompiled term for a piece of an organ or a piece of meat. But to what extent should FoodOn have plurals, pieces of all of those things, and then pieces raw? So that's set that in one case where, and then over on the practical use of FoodOn side, we've got these biosamples, and they are described like that column B, chicken, lizard, all classes raw. And it's being ambiguous, or heart, it's being ambiguous actually whether they're dealing with pieces of heart or whole heart. So what do you do when you're trying to text match phrases like that from a biosample to FoodOn? And do you say that chicken heart is an exact, is it an exact synonym of piece of chicken heart? No. So that chicken heart doesn't actually commit to whether it's a single piece. It's more likely that it's the whole thing, but maybe it is some pieces. They're being ambiguous in the sample name. So then we get into this thing where do we actually use broad synonyms to point us to the possibilities in FoodOn? Would we have a broad synonym chicken heart that would point to a whole chicken heart or piece of chicken heart? And so that's like, the problem isn't over on the ontology side. The problem is on our language, our ambiguity language side, that we could precompile ambiguous classes over on the FoodOn side, but what I was sort of moving to with Emma is that we could instead have a second field for a biosample record that had a pull down list that sort of specified what the ambiguity was at. And so if we get chicken heart sample, then we have another pull down, whole or pieces or piece. And that, or another selection is just piece in that menu. And that's where users can be specific if they want to, but we also do give them that general animal part, whole or pieces, or animal organ, whole or pieces kind of choice. So we stop trying to have precompiled terms in FoodOn for all of these samples, ambiguous sample states, and instead create it over in the menu. Now, that still mean we still want a synonymy match somehow to FoodOn, right? We want the word chicken heart, the phrase chicken heart, to point somewhere in FoodOn. So we could, but we can't do an exact synonym. So it kind of argues for a broad synonym pointing to piece of chicken heart, unless we're in the ontological way that we're kind of off the hook is that a piece of chicken heart can actually consist of pretty much the whole chicken heart. You could just like slice a little bit of the tube off, and now you've got a piece of a chicken heart, and the ontologist would be satisfied. They would calm down. So that's where I was thinking here. About that we would just use broad synonym to acknowledge that the phrase chicken heart could, in a text mining perspective, be kind of vague, but that it would point to piece of chicken heart. But other people's thoughts about that?
It's Emma here. So sorry if I missed it. If I could just clarify, so you're asking if piece of chicken liver raw is a synonym of chicken liver all classes raw, right?
Yeah, there's a synonym, but is it an exact or a broad?
Yeah, it's not an exact. I mean, you just said this, Damien, right? It's not. And
Right.
There's no need to over synonymize things, right?
Right.
So it's sort of like when we had cantaloupe and we didn't know whether it was pieces or whole, right? And so that's why we had cantaloupe whole or parts.
Yeah.
So yeah, just the chicken liver all classes raw, it fits with the synonym chicken liver raw that you have in column F, but the pink thing, I wouldn't put that.
Okay, so because last time I think that initially we started with the idea of using whole or pieces, but last time we thought that maybe it's like complicating everything, so we didn't go with that one. And then we thought that maybe we should have piece of chicken liver and pieces of chicken liver instead of having whole or pieces. So that's why now for the mapping purpose, I have to refer to some FoodOn term so I'm just confused if it should be referred to one term, or can we add like two terms here? Like, I'm not saying it's a synonym, first of all. It's just that which term should we refer to in FoodOn? Like, should it be like referring to both piece and pieces?
So I'm sorry if I missed the conversations, but is there not a chicken liver raw term?
One, yeah, there's a whole one.
There is
there's no just chicken liver raw. It's all either whole or pieces.
Yeah. Right.
So like, this is the thing, like, why are we being so specific? Like, just like the cantaloupe issue, like why can't we have something that's a little bit more vague that can address the uncertainty, right? Because data providers are never going to be like, this is a piece of chicken or a whole chicken, or sometimes they do, but you're going to get the stuff in column B all the time.
Yeah, so the solution we thought was we would just create a second field to address the ambiguity rather than precompiling a whole bunch of terms in FoodOn.
Yeah, and that's fine. Like if we say you have a chicken liver and then you have a second field and it says piece, whole, we don't know.
Right.
Cool.
Right. So in that respect, Anusha and Emma, maybe we could have an exact synonym for chicken liver raw that points to the whole chicken liver raw. and so we're just
Oh.
interpreting that text to be specific, but then we rely on a second field to handle the ambiguity part.
Sorry, maybe I missed that. So what you are suggesting is that we should have whole chicken liver raw as an exact synonym of chicken liver raw.
Right. It's got
And when
I don't think
goes,
no, like no,
yeah.
no. Okay,
no,
then it
just
has to
leave-
be broad and it has to point to both chicken liver piece and chicken liver whole as a broad synonym. And I can agree with that. Like that's what I was originally suggesting we run with, and then have this separate field for whole or pieces or piece clarification if it was available. But then it means we need a broad synonym for piece of chicken heart and pointing to that and pointing to chicken heart whole raw.
Like I just want to say, like, I know we haven't it's too late now because we built FoodOn the way we built it, but like from the start we should have shied away from these pre-composed terms, and we should have just had like chicken breast and then had the ability to say that it's skinless or boneless as qualities, and whether it's raw as qualities, and whether it's piece or whole as a different field, because now we've kind of pooched ourselves with this composite business. But anyways, that's not helpful for this conversation, but it's just
well, ontologically we do have to know whether we're dealing with a piece, but I see what you mean. Yeah,
like there's other ways we could have had other fields to for those modifications and had the core food item.
Mm-hmm. Right. We were offering precompiled terms for the piece itself because that's absolutely atomically essential. I mean, in a lot of references, but yeah, I know you seeking to have the ambiguous term. We've circled back to that again.
I think on the other hand, it doesn't hurt to have those precomposed terms for other people's use cases. I mean, maybe for yours, Emma, you want it that way, but there are other use cases which can make use of raw or other things. Like there's just a lot of different ways in different data systems. So it's not necessarily wrong, but I understand your point about not wanting. Yeah, I agree with what you said otherwise.
So I think the question here is, what are our use cases for using these terms then? And do we have enough use cases to add these?
Well, and we're not just speaking about our own area of reuse, but other areas too.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know there are a number of things that FoodOn wants to help with, and a number of different collaborators.
But it is true. These are data structures that we're ready to pump out or ask people to have a little bit more complex data structures at their end of the show. As an alternative. Well, I don't mind revisiting these things, of course. So the underlying question is it hard to bake the ambiguous term right into this? Or do we stick with having a broad synonym to handle the textual reference that's where the source of ambiguity is? So put another way, Emma, we can, FoodOn will definitely have a reference to the whole organ, and that's where the field, the column selector for chicken gizzard or chicken giblet or heart goes, but it's the ambiguity in the biosample that's handled by this other field. And if we do that, then we can make chicken heart or liver a reference to the whole thing, and we're not conflicting. We're not sacrificing anything informationally, as long as people are using that other field to say whole or parts, or so that they acknowledge the ambiguity up front in their data set in the next column over. or its default
I mean-
set to whole or pieces. In other words, the ambiguity is pointed to there.
I mean, it's I guess field is maybe not quite the right word. Like, I'm just thinking you can use multiple FoodOn terms to tag a piece of information like we have in column B, right? So if it was something like chicken, you could have a chicken liver as the core term. Then you can have a second ontology term that said dark meat. Then you could have a second ontology or a third ontology term that said it was raw. Then you can have another, like that. That to me would make more sense than pre-composed.
Right. Okay. So we are heading in that direction for many qualities. So this raw was just there for the most frequently grocery store referenced term, but we can also have right next door frozen raw. And I have yet to formalize what that kind of a quality menu would look like. That's on my plate. But these terms are being provided and just as the most frequently used terms. But yes, the other approach will be equally promoted for many things, and that is to break it down into qualities and parts separately. But in the case of this biosample ambiguity, I think the solution is to have the have chicken heart, that menu reference the whole organ pick list, and then next door is whether it was whole or pieces or piece, and therefore the synonymy could be exact between chicken heart raw and our whole term in FoodOn, just for text matching purposes.
Well, wouldn't it be the whole or pieces, because that has the ambiguity versus whole?
We're trying to get rid of the whole or pieces or piece class.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All together.
Yeah.
Okay. I missed that meeting.
Yeah, we'll leave it in there for existing entries, plants over in the plant department, but we don't have them really constructed yet for all the meats in most of the plants, so we would be avoiding that in the future. But we still have a class called animal organ, whole or pieces or piece. And so that's what the general term is that could be accompanied along with specifying what organ or what cut of meat.
Okay, I guess I don't understand the need to have the synonymy with whole then, with the more general term, because
right. Well, it was a choice. Is the synonymy an exact synonym pointing to the whole? Because the words seem to say that or imply that if on their own and nothing else. Or do we have that point to piece? If we're going to create a synonym, it has to point somewhere, and maybe it points to two places, and then we're using the broad synonym. Or it's an exact synonym, in which case it has to point to one place.
Right, yeah. So basically have, say, chicken liver is the broad synonym for chicken liver piece and chicken liver whole.
Right.
Yeah, as separate. Okay.
So that's kind of the choice, I would think, to keep all of this simpler.
Yeah, I think that makes the most sense intuitively and logically.
Okay.
Personally, yeah.
Yep. Yep. It handles the ambiguity a bit. Kind of solves that from a text mining perspective. And we don't have to create the whole or pieces class across the board. So what you say, Emma? What do you think? And others?
Oops, sorry, I was just doing something else. What's the question again?
Yeah, whether a whole or pieces or piece, if there's that ambiguity, then whether it suffices that we free text match chicken heart raw, say, to piece of chicken heart raw as a broad synonym, and we also have chicken heart whole raw as a target as a broad synonym. I mean, target. Chicken heart whole raw points to both the whole thing and a piece.
Oh, so okay, chicken heart raw points to piece and whole, two separate things. Okay. Yeah, sure.
Okay, because that text mining that accomplishes that ambiguity. That's what broad synonyms are for. And then we have another field to allow people to talk to great detail about exactly what their sample is. And we're already using that a little bit with our USDA mapping, because we've got a bag of terms column where anything not precomposed into a FoodOn term, any other qualities or characteristics are mentioned in that other bag of terms field.
Okay, so it means the consensus is on referring to two terms, which is piece of chicken heart raw and then chicken heart whole raw. Is that fine?
Yeah, for the synonymy, but not for equivalency. We're not doing any kind of equivalency or anything there.
Yeah.
Right, that's just your comment. That's your comment field, column D, is that right?
Nope, this is for the mapping terms actually.
So wouldn't it just be chicken heart raw, and then baked into that term is the synonymy with those smaller components or potential ambiguous components? So we would just want chicken heart raw.
Yes.
So this column D is the target of the broad synonymy for chicken heart raw. So that column F is the actual text encountered in the world, and then the column D are the two broad synonym of, and then the more specific things. The chicken heart.
So these are they're broad synonym, but they're the narrow synonyms of chicken heart raw, right? But chicken heart raw would be the broad synonyms of this?
Yes.
Yeah. Is it possible to maybe freeze the top row so we could see what columns we're looking at?
Yeah, sure. Just a second. So yes, this is first a FoodOn label. Okay, so maybe I could understand one thing. So we are not going, so in the new template, we are not going with this chicken heart raw and chicken liver raw. Is that right, Damien?
Right. No, these are broad synonyms.
Yeah.
And you would dispense with the brackets, and you'd put raw in front. Raw chicken heart for a phrase if you're trying to free text match it.
Okay, so my understanding is is this okay to map it to these two terms, which are chicken heart whole raw, or am I still misunderstanding?
Yeah. It's just that FoodOn label there. We're not doing any bars. There's only one name. There's none of that. There's only FoodOn label never has more than one label in it.
Yeah, I mean these will be two separate fields actually. Right. Yeah. So it's just I just added roughly.
Right.
Okay,
but this is just treating the pipe as the way to separate within the same row, which is how we usually do it within Excel. So I think that's the right thing to put for what she's doing here. It's just that it's not the FoodOn label. These are the IDs of the mapped terms, which happen to be the FoodOn labels. So I think she's doing it correctly.
Yeah.
But these aren't the exact matches, right? These are you were just saying, Damien was just saying these are the synonym matches, not that's where I feel like there's some confusion. Are we mapping are these supposed to be the main labeled terms, or are these supposed to be the synonyms for that ambiguous term? Because the column labels, right, I see right now don't add up to me with what we were just saying.
Right. Okay, you know what?
So this file is Anusha's mapping file between USDA NDB numbers off to FoodOn terms.
Right.
So I think in that case, it's fine to have both there, but that doesn't answer the question you just posed about the synonymy, which was elsewhere than right where she has it right there.
Yeah, just like making it really clear what are the synonyms that we're talking about here and what are the actual just like labels that we're going for.
Mhm.
So this is piece of animal heart, which is actually a class we have in the template. And we are saying that piece of animal heart can have a synonym.
Mhm.
We're
We'll
saying,
probably have to create one there called broad synonym
yes.
column.
But why are we mapping the FoodOn or the FDA term to the two smaller synonyms until instead of the ambiguous broad term?
Yes.
That's where I'm confused.
Yes.
Right. And that's a problem. So we'll have to go back to that in a sec, but just mock up or Anusha, go ahead and add the broad synonymy
Yes.
thing.
So this is chicken. We're saying it's chicken heart raw, right?
For the text, raw would always be in front and not in brackets, because we're really
Okay,
talking
right.
about text mining here when we talk about
Right,
synonyms.
right.
And then
Would
the
that be raw chicken heart?
and that would be in brackets animal, because we're substituting the animal name.
Yes. Sorry.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's
And
the actual synonymy we would propose. And then we would also have that same. And then we're also having that same synonym entry up in the organ reference directly. And it's raw or not?
Yeah, this one is whole, sorry. Yeah, okay, so we are talking. I think so that is okay without raw even, like, oh sorry, it's animal heart, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And okay, I'll make it.
All right. So that would be the broad synonymy at work. And I guess that's not raw either, or it is raw. Okay.
Yeah, this is raw.
Yeah. So that sort of takes care of the ambiguity, whole or part. Then back over on the on the other sheet.
Yes. So Emma was saying something, I think so.
And so here, we are having to identify what we want to map chicken gizzard to as a class over on the FoodOn side. And so it's going to be kind of a bag of terms thing as well. Whether we just sort of assume that it's the whole heart and then we add on for the USDA data a wholer piece, animal organ wholer pieces kind of extra piece of information to say it's a bit general. So I think I would point to the chicken gizzard whole raw and then add something to handle the ambiguity for those samples where we're not sure if it's actually pieces or not.
Okay, but some of the USDA samples has explicitly mentioned saying whole. So we have to differentiate between two samples where they have not mentioned whole, and where they have mentioned.
Right. So where they don't explicitly mention whole, that's actually if that was just an omission on their part, or if they actually meant pieces. That would be a nice clarification to make. Do you know the answer to that? Is it that they were just being ambiguous too?
Yeah, I'm not really sure about that, but
typically with these USDA samples, it's just trying to describe what was actually done, but then there's like there's always more steps to it. So if it's, like a bag of like if it's a bag of chicken wings or something like that, then it's actually pieces of chicken wings that was sampled, but piece of chicken wing might be sufficient for USDA descriptor.
Yeah, especially because it could have been bag of whole chicken wings. And then they mush them all up into one sample.
Exactly. That's usually the case for USDA's things.
So I think, yeah, it's fair to say that we reference the whole organ, and then we can have another field to disambiguate in the case where they're really talking about parts. They've been explicit about parts. In many ways, these samples we don't even know if they're composite. Sometimes they say they are, but
most, for example, the USDA SR data, most of it is actually composite. I think all of it. I don't want to say all of it, but I think most or all of it is.
Because they were originally trying to say we don't want the nutrients in a specific wing. We want them in this class of wing. So we'll mix them up together. Yeah, so not to pieces, just to whole.
Like this.
Yeah.
Okay.
And my apologies, Anusha. When we were looking at this table, I didn't even clue in that we weren't looking at the animal template. It was just, I didn't realize this was your mapping file.
Yeah, no, that's okay. That's no worries at all. So I'm just thinking, so if in case so now we are mapping chicken gizzard in, like, supposed to chicken gizzard whole raw, then what about like animal meat, any kind of animal meat like duck meat? So what would be the appropriate
Yeah,
term
well, as
to
soon as
map?
you mention the word meat, then we're definitely talking about a piece. So it's a little bit different from the organ. The organ thing was really, you didn't know whether you're dealing with the whole organ or part, but as soon as you're dealing with a piece of meat, you're dealing with a piece no matter what. So we get to, the only question is whether we're dealing with pieces of meat, plural, but they're not saying that. But as Kai just mentioned, actually implicit is that often many pieces are tested at once, but we don't have to say that.
I think that's probably a fair assumption to make for all this SR data, actually.
Yeah, I've seen that too in the past in terms of sampling. So you get to reference piece, just as we were referencing organ whole. That's the quanta of helpful info. And then we can always have a separate column field that says pieces or piece, if they really want to settle the ambiguity.
Yeah, like in USDA's case, I don't think that's necessary. We're talking about a class, which is a piece of chicken meat or whatever. And we're not going to be, the data systems we're kind of mixing up the pieces kind of mixes up the data system usage versus the class, like in every other Obo Foundry, doesn't really deal with the ambiguity of singular versus plural for classes. So
yeah, and the point is that it's just not for USDA, because we are also mapping from different agencies. Like suppose we are working on GRDI, and they also have similar kind of data like duck meat or chicken liver or something. So we know that whom should be mapped to, like.
Yeah, so this is all really good work. The solution is not to describe plurality on the ontology end. The solution is to describe plurality over in the biosample, whether it's a composite sample or a single sample. So we have this now in place for FoodOn, that we have animal organ whole or parts. That class stays. And
I don't think so. We have that because I think we discussed last time to take that out. Is that?
Well, we should put it back in. Yeah, that animal organ whole, and we should still have animal organ whole or parts as a general term to enable multiple parts.
Yeah, just like a small branch, not mapped to every animal.
That's right.
Yeah.
Constant, not in brackets. Animal.
Does that mean that we need all of them, like animal heart, polar pieces, like polar parts or whatever?
Not heart, no, just at the organ level. Just one line if we don't have it in there. Animal organ whole or parts. For those who need to describe their biosamples, and the same for meat, animal meat whole, animal meat piece or pieces. Just those two.
Okay.
Do you want it raw or not raw? I feel like this is just the top level one without raw, Anusha.
There should be a raw variation too. Yeah,
There should be, right?
there should be, just for convenience.
But we
No.
start off with one that isn't raw and then have one that's also raw.
Yeah.
Piece or pieces.
Right. And you can just say animal meat pieces. That handles the in the label there. You can just say piece is that second one. Yeah, chop that one out
Okay.
and take out the bracket there and just put it around raw for simplicity's sake. No, I mean,
Okay, I didn't understand. Sorry.
take out
Yes.
that bracket before piece, the parenthesis before pieces,
Okay.
and then add in brackets raw, because it's the modifier on that.
Like this.
Yeah. Just my opinion. Anybody can override me, but and yeah, those two things, and then the non-raw variations.
Okay, but we don't want them for individually for other organs, right?
You don't need them for that. No, this is just
Okay.
to handle folks who want to describe plurality.
Okay.
Or ambiguity.
Okay, right. I'll need to think more about it. Sorry. Okay, so just coming back to this one, so we are finalized for this one that for organ we are going with whole raw, like we can map it to whole raw, and for the meat part it's okay to go with piece of meat.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Thanks so much. And if anyone has any other suggestions or thoughts on that? So yeah, because the idea to discuss in this meeting was so to get more, so have feedback from other people as well if we are on the same page.
Yep. And see, Handy has dropped a comment there and has headed out.
Yeah, sorry, I have to go, but yes, I know some of you already heard me present about this, and some of the points that Emma was making and we were all agreeing on were used as parts that we considered while we were designing the ontology for the USDA data sets. It's currently just focused on the foundation data set, but yeah, some of those points were taken into consideration. Sorry, I gotta go. I have to make it to my next meeting, and
Right.
in person I need corridor time. So
Yeah.
see y'all.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
See you,
All right,
Handy.
take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Right.
We could have a presentation on biosample modeling. That would help clarify all of that and put the content on the FoodOn site. Okay. Thanks, Anusha. That was valuable. And
No, I'm so sorry that I'm sorry that I took so much time. I wasn't sure. I didn't know actually. Sorry for that.
No. We must all mind meld on all of this. So it's great.
Yeah. Thank you so much, everyone.
Okay, so I'll screen share back to issues. We've got maybe 10 minutes. I haven't looked at this precomposition, but in fact, our conversation this morning touched on it. Just folks, please add more comments here if they can help. I just tried to capture what we talked about last time. FoodOn tooling to use latest OWL API. Is everybody who's curating, has everyone done this update to the latest protege? If not, please do so before working on the files. It shouldn't matter too much to our build chain, but because we're using this one format that isn't the .owl format, but we're using OFN when we edit the FoodOn edit file, which may not have the same issue.
The point was that Charlie or whoever it was made a big stink about like the first time you save the edit file using the new version of Protege, it's going to make a lot of diffs.
Yeah.
So basically, I just wanted to make sure that this was dealt with properly. And so I made an issue about it. And basically, like whoever deals with this, just save it without making any changes in the edit file. And there'll be a huge diffs, but nothing will have really changed. It's just an update to the new Protege and like however it formats things differently.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless of, I don't know if that's just for OFN or OWL as well.
Right.
I assume it's going to happen either way. So just someone just needs to go in and save it. Maybe Damien, you'd be the best to do it.
Yeah. Oh, I've changed it on the FoodOn edit now.
Okay, so you've already done that then.
So
okay,
it's up to other people to make sure they're using 5.6.1, and then actually getting robot as well is sort of a separate operation to get the latest robot onto your computer. Okay. No news to report here in terms of this, except that I've started adding IDs, so I should actually update this diagram. There's a lot more new IDs now for terms that did have confidence to add. We've already looked at that one. This was just more of a general call out, see what terms might be applicable to food security analysis, but that's just a mini project for somebody, an idea. This is the one we we're just talking about for formulating a upper level term ontology hierarchy. The people who were editing the paper raised a stink that we had already published our diagrams for the paper onto this GitHub repo. At least one of the reviewers said that was a problem, so I've had to yank them temporarily. So they're not comfortable yet with the whole GitHub feedback concept happening parallel to the paper.
That's incredible.
Yeah. Well, It was one reviewer, and they raised it explicitly that did not meet Frontier's AI paper requirements for no published material already. So no unpublished material, and this was considered unpublished material. So whatever. Okay.
Just about this issue, you mentioned that also the HMO would be a nice place, but now it is not up to date because you say that it will be in OBI.
Right. And
also Kai was asking why not in COB.
Okay. Oh no, I was just asking the top level term, maybe in COB.
The top, yes, for the top level.
Right. Okay. Right. So news about CHMO. It's no longer maintained. This is news I just got in the last week or two.
Yes, that was my my feeling.
Right. So not an option.
And also it was more dedicated for describing analytical methods, not process high level.
Yeah. Well, unless we have this process ontology all on its own, it's going to end up kind of fitting always under one ontology, even though it might be better parts under another. So that actually brings up COB. The point that James made when in the OBI call was that COB didn't necessarily have its own curation crew. So I think there was some interest in having some upper level terms in COB for the material processing, maybe. But it seemed sort of like at least James's comment was that OBI would have the energy, the curation energy to carry it over the years, unlike some of these other ventures. But so it may be that it could end up in Cobb, and I would prefer it there.
Yes, because OBI is, I don't know if it is an important point, but I think that in the description of the purpose, you have to mention the domain of the ontology. And so I know that you can consider that a protocol can be a process, like a recipe or something we have already discussed. But I think that if we have a high-level process ontology, we have to find a place where the ontology is more generic. It is more generic as possible.
So it was
That's it. Yes, but we have to have a curation team also, if I understand correctly. Yes. Okay.
Right. So it's a point I raised. I asked them, like I had assumed that it wouldn't be OB because of the scope of OB.
Yes.
But James pushed back and said that, and then he pushed back and said, yeah, it should work in OB, and we've got the curation team for it. I mean, as some others on this call know, it's been hard to get some terms into OB over the years, partly my fault, but partly because even if each of us on the curation team could get attention, we would only be getting attention for about 4 weeks out of the entire year. So 4 hours of curation. So that's a problem. But aside from that, so I said, if OB does take it, then OB has to create a bit more of a marketing promotion that it's got content that applies to all of Obo Foundry and beyond, not just biomedical.
I mean, OB already does have that content. It's just not marketed that way. So it would be nice if they would market it that way.
Right. That was my point too. Other things though will be shifting out, like device is heading out to Cobb.
But they're probably still going to maintain the whole hierarchy though, right?
Yeah, just being one of the most active curation teams in terms of the upper level stuff. So anyway, I will engage with them more deeply about the structure of this, but that can be a function of our process modeling group arriving at what its needs are. And then we'll hand them over on a plate to OB in the form of 20 or 30 terms, probably.
I wonder if OB should also pick up CHMO then, if that's no longer being maintained or doesn't have a team, because it seems relevant as well.
Okay.
With the assay types, right? Because CHMO was basically like, I don't know if they coordinated. It looks like Charlie was on that project, Charlie Hoyt and some others, but they may or may not have coordinated with OB to see that OB also has assays, and that, so that anyway, there might be some overlap there.
Okay. I'll find out about that. So that came out of last week's discussion.
Yes, but that seems okay. If some specific terms are in FoodOn, I think it is a good way to link generic level and application level.
Yeah, and I'm really looking forward to working with you on that.
Oh, nice. Thank you. Me too, but it takes time.
Right. No kidding.
We have been talking about it.
I know, but it's like,
but it's very interesting for me also.
They will remember us for the next 1,000 years when we get our Okay, it's 10 o'clock. Anything else others want to raise here? If not, then let's bring it to a close and look forward to 2 weeks from now. Okay, thanks, folks.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a good day.
Mhm.